Thanks, Jim. Justin Stone here with EliteBaseball.tv, coming to you with the tip of the week. And as our youth teams begin to go outside and practice for the first time, I remember the stigma of youth baseball being that practice was boring and kids didn't like to go to practice. And the reason being, when we were young, I'm 40 years of age now, and I remember a lot of my 8- and 9-year-old practices consisted of one guy hitting at the plate and 9 other players standing around. And I was one of those guys that had high energy all the time, and I wasn't good at standing around, which usually meant I was throwing rocks. And then I was picking up rocks, and I was throwing them because I didn't have any balls hit to me that time. And my mom was the coach, which ended up me in running laps. So here I am, ready for action, ready to do something in practice. I don't have any balls coming at me, and so I'm picking up rocks and throwing them like they're baseballs, and I end up having to run. Well, the problem with this is baseball has a lot of standing around. So how can we most efficiently get your kids to love practice and keep it fresh for them and keep them active in the learning environment? And here's how we do it. I was also a college football player, and one of the things that was completely different from college baseball and college football is that every 9 minutes in college football, a horn went off, which signified a new period of practice. No matter what was going on during that practice period, when the horn went off, we went on to something new. And I really liked the structure of that because it kept everything upbeat, fresh, and you're moving on to the next thing, and you're keeping everybody involved and hitting them with new material. I always wondered, why don't baseball coaches do this? Why do we decide that we need to spend 45 minutes on bunt defense at one time, and it's worse at the end than it is at the beginning? When you have practice periods in shorter amounts of time, attention span becomes much better. Our concentration and focus on a particular skill gets much better. So I'm going to give you a 3-part practice plan today that's structured like my old football practices. We're going to divide every period into 9 minutes. And in these 9-minute periods, we're going to divide it into individual skill time, what I call group time, and team time. Assuming you have an hour and a half of practice at the youth level, we're going to have 3 periods of each 3 of these segments. So at the beginning of my practice, I have 3 periods for individual time. That will include my throwing skill time. That can include fielding ground balls into a mass ground ball drill. Or maybe we're taking some swings in a mass environment, hitting off tees, or maybe doing some soft toss with multiple hitters hitting at the same time. We want to keep as many bodies active as we can. And no matter what, when that 9 minutes ends, we're moving on to a new idea or completely new skill. This keeps it fresh and keeps hitting your kids with new material that keeps them interested in the practice. My 3 periods of group time means this. I like to work some group skill, usually a live offensive skill against a live defensive skill. And base running is one of the best ways to do this. Meaning, oftentimes we run the bases with a ghost team out on the field. We wonder why base running at the youth level is the worst skill of everything we do. Because base running is hard to teach because you need to do it at game speed in a live environment. It's instinct, it's reading. So instead of taking infield and outfield and working on our cutoffs, let's do it against live base runners. And I could put a coach in the third base coaching box. And I could have a guy going from first to third. And at the same time, I'm working outfielders throwing the ball from right field through a cutoff man to the third baseman, and we're working on multiple skills at the same time. So we can do live bunt situations that way. We can work on our base running that way. We can work the older kids hitting runs that way. Live offensive group against a live defensive group. And there's a ton of different scenarios you can do with that. Finally, my team-oriented drills. Here we're going to have 3 9-minute periods, and oftentimes we'll do one big drill in 3 9-minute periods altogether. And some of these that I call quad squad games, where we have 3 teams of 4, and what we could do is have a team on offense, a team in the infield, and a team in an outfield, and they rotate every period. So everybody is doing everything. And basically what we're doing, I have the coach on the mound, gives the hitter at home plate 2 pitches, and within those 2 pitches, the hitter has to swing at one of them. So it puts a lot of onus on the coach of having to throw strikes. But we get a ton of defensive situations, and our players at home plate are getting 3 or 4 at-bats in a 9-minute period. What are we trying to do? I'm trying to score as many runs in my 9-minute period as I can. And then they're going to rotate to the infield, and the infielders are going to rotate to the outfield, and we have players that are doing all of the segments of the game. Knowing at the youth level that most of your players are playing multiple positions, it gives them experience on all facets of the game in a short amount of time. When I run practices in this way, and I run practices for other teams and youth organizations, the best feeling in the world for me is we get done with an hour-and-a-half practice. Kids are running up to me and said, "We're done already?" And that is the ultimate compliment you have as a coach. You just practiced for an hour-and-a-half, had a ton of teaching and learning going on, hit them with multiple scenarios of new material, and it went by really, really fast for them. That's the sign of a good practice and a sign of a good coach. This is Justin Stone with EliteBaseball.tv, and until next week, we'll see you on the field.